Hello， 大家好，我是 Cecily， 我们又来到了占星观察室。我们今天的来宾是 Joy Usher 老师。那上次已经跟大家介绍过 ，Joy Usher 老师是澳洲非常资深的占星师，并且呢，他与 Mary Garcia 老师他们两位共同经营着一个在澳洲相当著名的占星学校，叫做 Astromundi。那我很开心能够邀请 Joy 老师呢来到我的节目，继续来为我们去分享他在世运上面的研究以及观察。Know your stars on your life， SATA 占星学院最受盛誉的核心课程即将要开学了。我们这套核心课程能够将一个占星新手一步步手把手教你从最基本的古典占星的知识，一直到深入完整理解整个本命盘以及预测的能力，让你不仅学到了占星的知识，而且学到了怎么样看懂自己的人生，掌握自己生命的一套方法。所以能够学习一套了解自己人生的课程，将会成为你一生都受用的最好的投资。Hello, Joy, see you again. Hi.
Cecily, it's lovely to be back again.
Last time you provide us so many useful information, and especially I personally very admire you can give me not only the prediction and also how can we can prepare for the future prediction, the future change, and especially you give us divide us into several groups. So I think the audience will love to know what is the group they are and how can they well prepare if they are that certain group.
Thank you. Cecily, it's lovely to see you again and to join you again. And you are absolutely right. I need to give a little bit of explanation about why I think this is useful. So, this is an old technique which is from the 1st century Persian period. So, this talks about the idea that we have 7 planets. It's 7 visible planets. It's the planets that they saw in the night sky. It's the planets that they tracked across the sky through the periods of Iraq, through when it was Babylon. It's a technique as old as Egypt. It's very, very powerful because it talks about each one of the 7 planets. Now, when I say 7 planets, because they look a bit odd here, but if I start on this side and I say, this is the sun, this is a symbol for Venus, then Mercury, then Moon, then Saturn, then Jupiter and Mars. It's like a pattern or a rhythm that the planets set up to take care of a person's life over a period of birth to 70 years. So there were certain things that you focused on in these times of life. The left-hand side is if you're born during the day. We talked last time about if the sun is above the horizon, it's in the houses from 7 to 12, then you're a daytime birth. So if you're born in the daytime, then the sun would take over the first 10 years of your life, and then it would hand over to Venus, and then for 8 years, Venus would be in charge of your life. After that, after Venus comes Mercury from the ages of 18 to 31, 13 years, and then Mercury hands over to the Moon for 9 years, and then Saturn takes over for 11 years, and then Jupiter has 12 years, and Mars finishes with 7 years. So you focus on this idea that these planets are what they call time lords. The term they used was chronocrators. And chronocrator, broken down from the Greek word, means time lord. So you have this kind of rhythm and pattern which makes sense as much as a transit would make sense. This would make more sense to an ancient astrologer than a transit would make to us today.
So it's a kind of a very simple model, but it's very useful and even powerful than we look at the daily transit.
Yeah. And in fact, you're right, Cecily, because some people criticize Fedaria for being too simple, but it's not simple at all. It's very, it becomes more complicated because it's not like, everybody else sits back for the first 10 years of life and nothing happens and the sun is the only player in the chart. That's not the way it works. No, this 13 years Mercury has is not a matter of saying, well, Mercury does all the work and nobody else does anything. That's not the way Fedaria works.
No.
So if you're born during the nighttime and you have the sun below the horizon, then your pattern is completely different. It starts with the moon because you are a lunar person. Solar person for sun, lunar person for the moon. And it follows a particular order, which is a bit tough because after the moon follows Saturn for 11 years. So from birth to 9 years old, the moon is your focus planet. From 9 to 20, Saturn is your focus pattern for 11 years. For 20 to 32, Jupiter rules for 12 years. Mars comes after Jupiter and rules for the shortest period, which is 7 years, from the age of 32 to 39. After Mars comes the Sun, which rules for 10 years, for 39 to 49 years of old age. When you turn 49, Venus takes over for 8 years and covers 49 to 57 years of age. And the last one is your longest period, which belongs to Mercury, from 57 to the age of 70. And you'll notice both of these finish at the age of 70. So this goes from birth to 70 years of age. And it's your personal, it's the rhythm of your chart, it's the heartbeat of your chart. It's that important. I can't stress how much we work to the pattern of this Fedaria. So what are the age groups that we're going to talk about? I'm going to talk about from the age of roughly 20 to 70. Now, this is early adulthood. We could have Mercury ruling for 13 years if we're born during the day, or we could have Jupiter ruling for a very similar period. We could have Jupiter ruling for 12 years over our life, and we could talk about early adulthood being about what are our ideas and opportunities, how are we growing into adulthood, and what is important to us, and how would we break down the 10 years between the age of 20 and the age of 30. Okay. Now, if you're born in 1998 or 1995, beg your pardon, you've gone through this process. If you're born in 2005, you're just starting it. So 2005, you've turned 20. 1995, you've turned 30. So anything between 20 and 30, you're in the middle of this. So you might want to pay attention to this, okay? The whole period of either 13 years or 12 years, Mercury is in charge if you're born during the day. So it's all about connection, experiences, ideas, language, knowledge, all these things, networking, finding your voice in a way, finding your voice, finding your ideas, finding how, where you will fit in the market, how you will earn money in life. All these sorts of things are the concerns of a daytime chart from the age of 18 to 31.
Yeah, it truly makes sense that during this age, I think that to learn how to communicate with because they are freshmen into the society, to start to work, they should know how to connect with others, to communicate with others, to express what is the truly idea of themselves and how can express themselves.
Yeah, it's you can be as clever as you want to be, but if you can't talk to other people, if you can't socialize or get your ideas across, or it frightens you to communicate, then this is what you've got to learn in life. This is the lesson for the daytime person. Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, the beauty of this is where it gets more complicated. goes from simple to jumps into complicated. And this is what frightens people, okay? Is that the time of years is divided by the 7 planets. So including the first one. So you always start with your first big major lord. So this one will start with Mercury, and this one will start with Jupiter. So it's roughly, if you take 13 years and divide it by 7, it's almost 2 years for each one of these guys to hand over and over. So 2 years or less than 2 years is quite a lot of time to focus on something and to keep reminding yourself. Remember, then you're going to have a Jupiter. What we tend to get then if you're born during the night and it's Jupiter, it goes from the age of 20 to 21 and a half in age. So it's a roughly 18 months. You can see that Jupiter is 18 months. You can see that this one is almost 2 years of time. So this gives you a block. So if you're between the ages of 20 and 30, then find where you are at this particular time. Look at your age groups and think about if you're born during the day, it's the left column. If you're born during the night, it's the right column. And how old am I in this time? When I'm getting these transits, when it's happening to me, what's happening in my boat? Okay. So there's a pattern here that follows, and we have this, if we were talking about a daytime, then when you turn 19 and 10 months to the age of 21 and a half, then you're going to go into a period which is about family. Now, it's like this
That's
is
the moon.
Yes, that's right, exactly. This is the thing steering the boat. This, if you think of this second planet here, whether it's Mercury, whether it's Saturn, whether it's Jupiter, whether it's Mars, whether it's Sun, or these are the helmsmen. These are the ones that are steering the boat. And they're steering the boat because they're trying, the boat itself is Mercury. This is what you have to learn. You have to learn to communicate your emotions. You have to learn to communicate with your family. You have to listen to your body language to learn how to communicate about it. These are the things you learn. This is very, very important, who steers the boat. The boat's important, but the steering person is critical. You need to know who's in charge. Okay?
Yes.
First step, you can try to know you according to your age. Then you will know during this period of time which boat you are and what kind of stick will lead your boat. And then to see if this planet will be strongly impacted by the outer planet transit.
Oh, absolutely. Because if one of these planets is particularly, look, sometimes even, a Jupiter or a Saturn can affect a Jupiter period or a Saturn period. But if you've got something like a Mercury Sun period and Pluto is transiting either one of those planets, then Pluto is going to bring in all these underworld passionate feelings that are going to lead to secrets or betrayal, really kind of things from the past that you have to deal with. And you think that you're dealing with Pluto, but in fact, this is really what you're focusing on, is this Mercury Sun. What is my integrity? How am I being challenged? Who doesn't believe me? Where is the power struggle coming from? All those sorts of things. Look at this to see what this is about, because while Pluto's throwing you around, you've got to focus on Mercury and the Sun. That is your focus.
Yes. So follow the same rules, the same logic, then everyone can to find out which boat they are. So we can go through each boat, each big boat and small boat.
And as long as you realize that, and you need to look at this symbolism and relate it back to the age. As long as you're doing that, you're not going to go wrong with this model. If I'm in a Jupiter Mercury period and I'm this age, then this is what I'm focusing on. If I'm this age, I'm born at night, then this is what I'm focusing on. Now, you might look at the Jupiter moon and think, well, Jupiter moon looks really nice. Jupiter's a nice planet. The moon is in control. But imagine if you're having a transit or something really intense to the moon at that time. All of a sudden, it becomes something which is, if Saturn is there, all this stuff becomes about separations and isolation and sadness and possible depression and anxiety, all those sorts of things that might not have been there if you weren't having a Saturn transit to those things here in the chart.
Yes.
And that's the last one for this nighttime is Jupiter-Saturn. So again, if you are having major Jupiter or Saturn transits, have a look at them, because that whole period is to finish off Jupiter's 12 years and to say, what are my foundations? What have I learned? What do I need to strengthen? What do I need to build in order to go to the next one? And it's really important.
Yes. Especially we know Jupiter and Saturn, they are in traditional the most far planet. So we use these two planets to predict a very long-term decision for our lifetime.
Exactly. And these two come together every 20 years. In the cycle of them, they come together every 20 years. And they, for the world, they are big things. They're financial. All financial astrology is based on Jupiter-Saturn trends. And so they're really critical.
Yes, very critical.
We're going to move to the next one. If you are between the age of 30 and 40, then you've moved to the next period. And this is if you're born between 1995, which is 30, and 1985, 10 years before that, then you're age of 40. So age of 30 to 40, then you're going through your fourth period, and it's a toss-up between Moon and Mars. So these are things that will give you a flow on your life that will tell you what's going on while all this is happening. Then it is your Moon period, your 9 years of the Moon. And each one of these will be teaching you about your emotional side of your life, because it's not always a big thing in a diurnal chart to deal with emotions or to deal with things that the moon are. So you have 9 years to learn what fulfills you, what gives you your statement about the public duties you do, the service that you have, your relationship to women, your relationship to your body, to life in general, or even specifically to mother and child. Then that transit will have effect on how you emotionally cope with life and how your body and your health is. So that's important to know. So even though you think that transit isn't about your moon, with this background, it actually is. It affects how your moon deals with life. And so without going into any more periods, work out the age you are or what period, and work back to major transits. If you're an astrologer, look back to things in your life that you thought weren't about these things, and I think you'll find that they are. This is the base plan of your life. So if you're born at night, you're going to have 7 years of Mars. So each one will be, and this is a nice easy one, because this goes birthday to birthday to birthday to birthday. So
only 1 year.
I know, it's so nice and simple. I wish they were all this easy. So if you're having a transit and you're a nighttime birth and you're between the ages of 32 and 39, this is about meeting a challenge. This is very much about how courageous am I? How much courage do I have? How much motivation do I have? Every transit you have in this period, if you're a nighttime one, is there to make you think, do I keep going with this or do I stop? Do I go ahead or do I stop? Do I change? That's really simple as what the Mars idealism is. If you're a nighttime birth, Mars is a very strong planet in your chart. That's all you need to know about. And you need to know that following your passion is very important to you if you're born at nighttime. And sometimes following your passion is going to be difficult when life is throwing you difficult transits and hard transits and constantly making you think, is this right? Am I being silly? Can I do this? All those sorts of things. So each one of these things will question Mars differently depending on who is steering this. Mars is often conflict. You know, you're often having to stand up for yourself. You're often having to argue about something. You're often having to not be agreeable or go against everybody else's plans. That's part of what Mars is learning about, that you've got to believe in yourself sometimes, and you can be passionate, but you can be kind too. This is very much about learning to be kind and learning to say thank you without shouting it really loudly and being really angry about it. That's what Mars is about learning in the transit period time. So does that make sense? Is there anything there that you would like me to explain, or it's pretty much self-explanatory?
I love the idea about Mars because in our culture as a Chinese, we are much more like to have a peace with others. We don't want to argue with others, but sometimes we have to, because Mars is in everyone's chart. So we still have to learn the energy of Mars. Sometimes we just have to be a leader. We just have to stand up for some justice.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you can't please everybody, Cecily. You know, it's impossible to please everybody. And sometimes we have to learn to be a bit selfish and please ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. 刚刚上面的这些内容，其实Joy老师已经是将整个法达技术呢去分享给大家。那我相信呢，大家看了这个内容之后，应该是相当的兴奋。可能有些人还没有点到你的年龄，你的那一艘船。那么我们还会有下一集再继续把我们相当丰富的内容能够讲述完。那如果你喜欢我们这支影片的话，欢迎你可以分享出去给更多人看见。那如果你想要深入研究古典占星的知识，那欢迎你可以关注SATA星空凝视占星学院。那我们下次见喽，拜拜 ，See you next time, Joy， 拜拜，拜拜，拜拜。